We're already live.
We're live.
We're already live on YouTube. Okay.
People see us.
People see us. Oh, man. Welcome to the Sunset Session. I'm sitting here with one of my favorite people in the entire cannabis industry, Rusty from Old Pal. Rusty, Nux.
How's it going?
It's going well. Although, based on COVID, we haven't done the man hug, and it really hurts, a lot. But
sad.
Hopefully soon. Hopefully soon we'll be able to break social distance, and this world needs more man hugs.
I need more hugs.
Yeah, and you fit so well in my nook. What can I say? So we're sitting here in Manhattan Beach, California. Sunset behind us, glorious. But we're here to talk about cannabis, all things Old Pal, and building brands. So, starting fresh, can you, for people that don't know, what is Old Pal? And please introduce who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so Old Pal is a sort of a brand of cannabis that we started in 2018, really focused on kind of bringing our friends back into the dispensary. In 2018, when just cannabis became a thing legally in California, most of our friends that had been working in cannabis for years in the Prop 215 days weren't buying their flower legally. They were just like, hey, I don't want to go to a dispensary. I don't want to pay 35% tax. Everything in there is sort of geared for this super affluent consumer that doesn't resonate with me. I'm going to stick to buying my weed illegally. And so my partner Jason and I had this idea of building a brand that was like, we always talked about being like the PBR of cannabis, of being, great weed for a great price that folks who were used to paying $20, $25 for an eighth could walk in a dispensary, buy, and feel like it was cool. So we partnered with these guys, Land, out of Austin, who epic designers that did Stumptown Coffee,
Sure.
Patagonia, and sort of worked with them to create this brand of like value flower that treated the consumer like they were still special. At the time, there were a few other brands on the market doing it, but the flower that was going in those brands' bags were flower that didn't hit the spec for their special brand. For us, we, from the get-go, focused on treating our consumer right and making sure that we were selling them a product that we would smoke and we believed in.
That's awesome. And I know that the mission of Old Pal is to bring people together through cannabis.
Absolutely. That's, cannabis is something that's always brought me and my friends together, and something I've been a user of like my whole life. And it was really important to us that anyone be able to afford to buy an eighth of weed in a dispensary. It's...
Well, and I think there's been a lot of innovation with the brand, but like the shareable cannabis, like, what comes with a pack of papers. Obviously we can't share joints right now in 2021, but hopefully in 2022 again. But the idea of like, yes, this didn't cost an arm and a leg, but it's still quality. And here, so provide for your friends, provide for the community.
Absolutely. I mean, that's our pre-rolls today. It's 2 half-gram pre-rolls in a single tube. The idea there is, we can't share joints, but there's one for you and one for a friend. That was sort of our response to COVID.
I just got butterflies. That's beautiful.
But, shareability is something that's been really important to us when we started the brand. Like, I drink Bud Light. I always looked at like the idea of like drinkability, and like doesn't really mean a whole lot, but at the same time it means a lot as a consumer of the brand. And like shareability seems so obvious, like weed's meant to be shared, but there was something about buying a $70 to $5 high-end indoor eighth that like I might keep that in my drawer and only pull that out on a special occasion. And, there was a space in the market for something closer to a table wine that you could share with your friends.
Yeah. Well, and not everybody is the right consumer for 30% THC cannabis.
Not everyone wants to have a panic attack under their desk.
Right. Some people want to function and be social. Yeah. So I love it. So you're from New England.
Yep.
And you worked in finance for a year or two, moved out to California to chase the startup, fintech dream. But you have a great story that you were wanting to work in cannabis so bad, you were sending LinkedIn messages to anyone that worked in cannabis.
And I was sending them to anyone and everyone. Like I was sent them to Ease, I sent them to Kiva, you know, I sent one to Meadow the day they got into Y Combinator. I mean, I was literally, I was working in a more traditional industry, and, you know, I was, call it 23, living in California, seeing this mystical business of like legal cannabis, and like I'd sold weed in Boston, but it wasn't exactly the same thing. And so trying to understand how to break into that industry, like I was going to all lengths. And, you know, it's funny now, like I'm friends with the founder of Bloom Farms, but like his career fair was what got me into working in weed. Like I went to the Bloom Farms career fair in 2014. I met Charlie, our COO at Old Pal, who was at the time the head of distribution
VP
at
of
Kiva,
sales, VP of distro,
something
Kiva,
like that, like running distribution. Ended up working for him like a month later, and then, you know, fast forward a couple years when we started Old Pal, he was like the first person we called to join the team.
Unbelievable. It's just, you know, people ask how to get a job in the industry, and obviously proximity is everything, and being in Southern California where there are people that work in cannabis is important. But like proactive, put yourself out there, look for ways to get into the industry. Like you weren't trying to make $1 million starting off or anything like that. You're trying to just do something that you believe in.
It's funny, like I have quite a few friends in the industry who similar age, similar, like whether they're a founder or whatever at other companies, and they all have those same stories of like, I knew I wanted to be in the industry and I was willing to do whatever to sort of break in. And whether that was like, you know, our head of sales, Kendra, worked as a bud tender. She just went to a dispensary all the time, really wanted to work in cannabis. And
Kendra's freaking fire.
Was just like, hey, how do I get into this thing? And then from that transition to working for a distributor. And then we met Kendra, and it was sort of a no-brainer.
I haven't tried to recruit Kendra. I just know that she's very good at what she does.
Don't.
All right. I won't. She wouldn't leave anyway.
She's an Old Pal tattoo.
I tried.
We feel good she's staying.
I'm kidding. So anyway, you got the job at Kiva. You went to Flocana for a bit.
Yep.
Helped them open up Southern California and get their product into shelves.
Yep.
Went back to Kiva to help more. I guess we call it downstream, like sourcing for the brands that they carried as a distro, and one day you got the call from a buddy whose product you had helped to carry for Kiva, right?
Yeah, and it's funny. It goes full circle there too. So Jason, my co-founder, he called. We met when I was distributing Native at Kiva, but he called me in probably early 2018 with the idea for Old Pal. It was sort of a no-brainer for me. Like I said, I drink Bud Light. I love PBR. I was like, oh, value flower makes all the sense in the world to me. The industry needs this right now.
Absolutely.
Sort of jumped on, and then we recently had the opportunity to actually acquire Native. So Old Pal now owns Native, and we're working on that one together again, which is really funny. It's
another full circle.
Full circle.
But it's true. Like you meet interesting folks in this industry, and then everyone's collaborative and helpful, and then years pass, you work together in different ways.
And that's, with our business model of just partnering with folks, we don't hold licenses in any of the states we operate. Doing good business with the people we do business with has been so important. We haven't had the luxury of having a $50 million production facility that's all state of the art. We've had to convince people that working with Old Pal was not only good for us, but also good for them. And, Jason and I were pretty fortunate that I'd say from 2014 to 2018, we worked with a lot of great people and did right by most all of them. So when we started Old Pal, those people were willing to support us, and it's made all the difference in the world.
Yeah, it's awesome. From reaching out on LinkedIn, trying to get in the industry, being the CEO of one of the top 10 THC cannabis brands in the country. It's an amazing story. I met you right when you started in 2018 in March. Just launching on Ease, right? We used to be based in Venice at the time, and you were and then you launched your distro outside of Ease a couple months later, and then basically off to the races.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. I mean, when we met, I think it was still like 3 of us working out of my living room in a rent-controlled West Hollywood apartment, so it wasn't exactly glamorous. That July when we launched into shops, I'd say we had just gotten our WeWork little bubble that was like 6 people in a room meant for 2. And it was crazy, you know, when we turned on retail distribution, my friends with shops supported us so much. You know, working at Kiva over the years, we had the luxury of touching just so many different retailers around the state, and like Connected carried our product day one. They were a huge supporter. Kushagram, just like some of the biggest retailers in the state were so quick to just support us from having known us with our previous businesses. Yeah. And it was just amazing. It allowed us to really come out of the gate and be in influential shops in just about every major market overnight.
And there's a lot of talk when California cannabis started in the rec market. It was about brands and house of brands, and everyone's trying to be a Diageo, and then it's like, no, you have to be vertically integrated. But is it possible to? It is possible to be profitable as a brand.
Yes, yeah, it is.
And it just takes. I mean, you need some type of scale and volume in a brand that actually connects.
And I think you also need the right structure of team. Like, we see it now when we work with all these different partners around the state and around the country, that the businesses that we see succeed are the business where the executives of the business are working on the business all day. They're not trying to figure out how to sell the business all day. They're either, if they own a farm, they're actually on the farm in the greenhouse, making sure that's working. And we sort of did the same thing. You know, our company is a total of 30 people. We're not massive in terms of overhead. And we were fortunate to be operating at a large scale where you can sort of manage operating on a slimmer margin than a vertical business. But when we look at, call it, the whole ecosystem that powers Old Pal, you know, just in California, there's probably over 1,000 people that are employed to work on the Old Pal brand. They're just doing things at all of our various partners, whether they're a cultivator, a packager, a trimmer, anywhere in between. It's a ton of people that power this company, but the way we're structured, we're able to do it, you know, a little bit different than most folks.
And you've obviously the last year or so, that multi-state push has been big. And
yeah, we it was cool. We launched in Nevada with Flower One in 2019.
I saw that. I remember like by the end of 2019, it was like top selling flower brand Nevada, Old Pal.
Yeah, and it was crazy. Like, we're something like
within like a month.
Yeah, it was like we were like 15% of the flower market there, like almost overnight. It was. It was crazy to just like, we partnered with a group that really understood what we were trying to do, and we came into a market that no one was trying to do that at the time. You know, in Nevada at the time, there was a lot of, call it, retailers with their own vertical grows trying to maximize margin, and that's great for the business, but for the consumer walking into the retailer, their experience isn't always the best. And so we found a partner that sort of believed what we believed, wanted to get flower into the user's hands at a price that made sense, and we pushed really hard. I think, you know, probably in something like 40 of the 60 shops in Nevada.
And now you're in Oklahoma. Talk to me about the difference between Oklahoma and the California cannabis market. Top three differences.
Yeah. So I'd say the first is just the lack of rules. Like, Oklahoma has regulation, but compared to California, where an edible can't be larger than 100 milligrams in the package and no larger than 10 milligram servings and all these things, Oklahoma, they're still selling, I think, 2,500 milligram edibles.
Jesus.
There's retail just everywhere. I want to say in Oklahoma, there's over 1,000 open shops, and I think licenses for 2. And it was a market that was a little bit more, I'd say, democratic in terms of just the access to it. If you were an Oklahoma resident and you had, I think it was $2,500 originally, now it's up to $7,500, you can get a license. And there were pros and cons to that. The cons were, we definitely saw retailers that are already struggling a year or so after opening. But the pro is that just about anyone that wanted a seat at the table and had a little bit of resources could pool those with a few friends and do something. And the level of access for the consumer is just amazing. You know, even in
consumer has so much choice versus like an Illinois where there's like 6 folks that dominate, and 8s are $80 you know, and
exactly.
And it's just, but people want cannabis so bad in the Midwest. There's not a lot of options that they'll buy anything.
I'll say it was just mind blowing to me, you know, living in California, doing the legal cannabis thing, and like thinking like Oklahoma, I can't even believe weed's legal there. And then getting out there and seeing it myself, I was like, wow, like the largest farm in the country is probably in Oklahoma. Like, that's just a crazy reality to think about. It sort of feels like a few folks out there are really gearing up for federal legalization. Just, you know, 100+ acre farms are crazy to think about in Oklahoma.
There's like 1 million people in Oklahoma, right? There's like not a ton of humans.
I think there's 400,000 people in the medical program in terms of patients. So it's not the most massive in terms of number of users or anything like that, but the state's just so liberal with how they're thinking about cannabis. It's very business first. They're granting temporary cards to folks coming across the border from other states. They have reciprocity on medicinal. Like it's just it's a thriving market that I think is going to keep growing for the foreseeable future.
What other markets do you think is next for Old Pal? Like where would you like?
So we'll launch in Michigan in the next few weeks, like probably 6 or so weeks. We're really excited about that market.
Michigan's been it's our second biggest market outside of California over the last 12 months. So
and it's just like it's a really cool one. Like the retailers out there have built some pretty great experiences. There's a decent amount of retail already open.
Yeah.
The market
several hundred.
Yeah,
right?
The market sort of still feels a little bit starved for flower, and so we're excited to be coming in with flower at a great price.
Yeah, those northern climates, like they're going to be starved for flower for a long time until it's tough to grow that at scale indoors, right? Especially for a state like Michigan that kind of accelerated the launch of adult use, and it's going to eventually normalize, but you're still selling flower $4,000 a pound.
Yeah, it's cool. We feel pretty fortunate that our partner has indoor greenhouse and outdoor production. They're really excited about some of the breeding work we've done and some of the genetics that they'll be able to put in their outdoor and greenhouse. But we're really excited about that market.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Rusty, I mean, you have the most inspirational beard of any man I've met in cannabis, and there's some great beards in cannabis. That's a big
compliment. I take it
I know
seriously.
It's been a while since we've seen each other, but I let my hair go, glorious cannabis hair.
I'm just nothing but jealous.
My beard doesn't look as good as yours, even when it's long, but I was like, I'm in the right industry, right time. It's COVID. I'm gonna let it go, but it's still not as good as your beard.
I appreciate that to my core.
Well, and I appreciate you coming in. Braving LA traffic, but it's not so bad here, right?
Yeah, no. There's a lot worse places to be at sunset, huh?
There's a lot worse places to be, and all is okay in the world. But Rusty from Old Pal, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Guys, have a great day.